The two lads marched down the street, swinging their shoulders, cans of beer in their hands, and long tartan scarves flowing out behind them. They sloshed beer in their exuberance and shouted at the top of their lungs. B-A-Y, B-A-Y, B-A-Y-C-I-T-Y with an R-O-L-L-E-R-S. Bay City Rollers are the best. Shut up! Came a hoarse holler from further down the street, the shape of a naked beer-bellied man silhouetted in a shabby sash window by a dim flickering yellow light. Some of us are trying to sleep. Even that light, and the light chattered the television, would disappear soon. 3-day weeks, power cuts to save money and energy. Welcome to the modern world. Fuck off, you wanker! The lads shouted back in unison, and then ducked into a side alley together. One of them stopped at the mouth to watch the street, while the other vanished back into the dark and yanked a can of spray paint out of his pocket, spraying the wall, writing out the name of his idols one giant letter at a time. He'd just finished the Y when he stumbled against something in the dark. He fumbled out his lighter and flicked it on, casting a shaky light over the alley. Half or more of the streetlights were out. It was the only way to see. You could get away with a lot in the dark, swings and roundabouts. The dancing flame revealed a pile of newspaper and cardboard, but there was something underneath it. Something heavy. Something heavy that wouldn't shift. He crouched down, curious, and threw the card and paper out of the way, falling back with a little girly shriek, "Eek!" as the light revealed the battered black face of a corpse. "There's a dead wog back here, Derek." The other lad came scrambling back and took out his pocket torch, clicked it on and played it over the corpse. "Fuck me! Check his wallet, Alan." With the torchlight whipping back and forth over the body, Alan crouched down and started to rummage through the corpse's clothes, plucking out his wallet. "Christ alive, there's a Henry in here, and at least a couple of ponies. And I'm quite certain his family would like both back, if, indeed, they are his." The voice was strange, quiet, muffled, but it had a way of cutting clean across your perception, right through the sound of traffic and the huffed breaths of the two youths. They turned as one, towards the end of the alley, and Derek's torch played over a strange figure. He wasn't tall, perhaps 5'7", 5'8" at the most. He was dressed entirely in black from top to bottom, a ragged figure in leather jeans and a ragged old trench coat with a high collar. Even his hands were covered with black gloves. The only colour they could see were gleaming red circles in the dark like demonic eyes. But they weren't. They were lenses. Lenses on a gas mask. "Who the fuck is this spaz?" Alan stood tall now he'd recovered from the surprise. He stepped towards the strange man at the mouth of the alley. "What's wrong with you that you'd steal from a corpse? What's wrong with you that you have no respect for this poor dead man? What's wrong with you that you give a fuck, you weird-looking nonce?" Alan stepped up to him and reached out to shove the short man's shoulder, unsettled by his strange appearance and wanting to feel strong in front of his friend. The man in black twisted with the shove and balled his left fist, bringing it hard across Alan's jaw. It hit him like a steam train. The glove, weighted with lead filings. There was a crunch as teeth parted company with jaw. He was bodily flung back into the wall of the alley, spitting enamel and giving a strange gurgling bloody scream. He slumped to the ground, clutching his ruined mouth. "Keep the fuck back from me." Derek stumbled away, keeping the torch on the man as he slowly walked towards him. He fumbled in his back pocket for his switchblade, clicking it open and holding it out threateningly in his shaking hand. "You really don't want to do that." The man pushed back his jacket to reveal a dark leather belt around his waist, from which hung a half-dozen holsters, each a different shape. "Is that a utility belt? Do you think you're fucking Adam West or something?" Derek laughed nervously, stepping forward, jabbing threateningly with the knife. The man feinted right with his fist, and Derek slashed him with the blade, scraping across leather, only to get his wrist snatched by the man in his other hand. He wasn't big, but he was strong, and Derek was slammed against the back wall, his arm held in the iron grip as the man unbuckled one holster with a fluid motion. From it he snatched out a hammer and smashed it into Derek's hand, shattering small bones and making him keen like a banshee. "No, it's a tool belt." The red-eyed man in black handcuffed the two men together. No point in wasting cuffs. He left them, clinging to each other, weeping and swearing around their wounds and the blood, taking what comfort they could from each other. He stepped over to the body and respectfully uncovered it, pushing back his sleeve and shining dim red lights over it. He plucked up the discarded wallet for a look at it. There was something off about this. The money, the drugs, the way he'd been killed. The body was covered in long, straight bruises, clustered around the top of his body. A tentative touch confirmed broken, floating ribs, swollen and bruised flesh, a softness here and there on the man's skull where the bone had been shattered. The man had been systematically beaten to death over the course of some time. The man in black peeled back the gas mask, just up over his nose and his mouth, revealing a broad, bristled chin as he leaned down to sniff at the corpse. Ganj, so he was a dealer after all, he murmured to himself, pulling the mask back down and turning back to the wallet. Something didn't add up. He opened it up. There wasn't much in here, just some cards and paper. The only notes were crisp and new. The drugs, perhaps an eighth of an ounce of marijuana resin, were in a brand spanking new plastic bag, way too large for the small amount of drugs that was there. Something was absolutely, definitely off. There wasn't time right now to think it through. There was the roar of an engine and the squeal of tyres. The man in black darted his head around, the red lens of his mask darkening in the sudden harsh light of the beams. The doors flew open and heavy shoes slammed down on the pavement. He scrambled back away from the body, but the alley stopped in a dead end. The heavy closed door at the back of a chippy. "Hello, hello, hello," laughed one of the coppers as they strolled up towards him. His hand was thrust into his pocket. He pushed it through the sling on his truncheon and dragged it out, slapping it into his palm while his partner hung back a bit. "I don't want to hurt you, but I will if I have to." "You threaten a police officer, Squire?" His partner was paying attention now, taking out his own truncheon, a pair of them blocking the whole exit. "Christ," said the copper at the back, spotting the rollers and the state they were in. "A body and 2 beatings? Off to an early start this evening, aren't we, sir?" The 2 police looked at each other, and demeanours changed, subtly. Body? The penny dropped. Nobody would have managed to get word out about the body yet. They'd barely even looked down the alley yet. They knew. They knew already. They'd always known. What I said earlier? I've changed my mind. He pressed back against the chippy door and braced his boot against it before springing forward towards them. They met, halfway down the alley. He brought up his arms, twisting side to side. He blocked one truncheon blow with his arm, numbed and bruised. The other smacked into his belly with a solid-sounding thump that surprised the copper that swung it. That was his chance. He snapped out with his fist and spread the officer's nose across his face, sending him sprawling. His cap flipped through the air to fall to the dirt. That was all he needed. Now there was space to run. Where there were a couple of cops, there'd likely be more, especially if they knew about the corpse. The man in black hunkered down and ran. His heavy boots dented the bonnet of the Rover as he leapt up and over it, ragged leather coat streaming out behind him. The remaining cop thundered along in pursuit, dropping behind him as he wove through the darkened streets at breakneck pace. He knew the streets like the back of his hand. When the policeman came to another alleyway and shined his torch down it, there was no sign of the man in black. It was empty. Nothing but a manhole cover and a piece of card fluttering to the ground. A piece of card with a sketch of a rat, and the words, "I know," scrawled upon it.